Alright, what's up y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Today is the 16th of July, 2026. This is a video under our main side, one of the four sides to us as In The Image Clothing Company, where our slogan is allowing the body to work. Okay, there's only one way the human body could ever work. It's just a mechanical machine placed onto this rock in space that is our Earth. Okay, abiding by universal laws outside of all of us, like gravity, physics in any form, God's laws, with the human being designed in the image of God, in the image of Jesus Christ. Here's your clothing company, our 5-word company name, In The Image Clothing Company, to address the only thing physically placed onto the human being, the literal word of clothing. Okay, the way that God clothes the fields with grass, we clothe our bodies with anything at all. Hats, gloves, shoes, pants, socks, tops, undergarments, jewelry, glasses. Clothing something over your shoulder like a bag, or like even just placing a top over your shoulder like this, meaning not actually wearing it the way you would think about wearing something, but just having something placed on you. The literal word of clothing is what we discuss here under In The Image Clothing Company. So, we discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth, our slogan being allowing the body to work. We give a lot of free modifications in clothing, modern clothing imbalances shipped across the entire Earth, fairly universal designs that are damaging bodies in modern 2026 and going forth. We've got technology with robot stitching clothing, so imbalances and rotated seams in clothing, things like this. But then also just the technology to have the same designs be worn across the entire planet Earth in modern 2026 and going forth, with a lot of imbalances that can really damage our bodies. So at baseline, clothing has to at least stay centered, because there's this vertical pull to gravity that comes down and meshes with the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, a 90-degree perpendicular right angle. But it also meshes with the spine and the sternum and the trachea, the nose, the jaw, things in the center line of the human being. The jaw stabilizing the entire body with musculature up to the crown of the head, down to the upper ribs, and out to the edges of our shoulders, going through the collars of our tops that need to stay centered and snug. Okay? Clothing company. In The Image Clothing Company, our 5-word company name, only really just to allow the body to work. So yeah, staying centered, fitting correct, things like joints of material of clothing, meshing with joints of body parts, and being made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials is what clothing has to be at baseline, because the body's natural. We're literally what we eat. We eat things from the earth. Plants that grow from the earth, or animals that eat plants that grow from the earth, become the human being. We die and our bodies go back to the earth. It's always been the same stuff. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. So, unnatural things can be taken from natural things, but they always decompose back to natural. This video's title, okay, on the 16th of July, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main site here, is rotated shirt tail seams and the hips. And we talk about it, in The Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification, in the side seams of tops, in the sleeves of tops, in the pant cuffs, in shorts or long pants, or wherever it could be in clothing. When we've got seams that come down and they get stitched in only one direction, we snip it with scissors or whatever you use. Just cut it a little bit to have it be able to go both directions. Otherwise, the motion of the body that's there isn't allowed to work. Allowing the body to work. In The Image Clothing Company's slogan here on our main side. Today's the 16th of July, 2026. This video's title, Rotated Shirt Tail Seams and the Hips. The hips, or the pelvis structure of the human being, has a neutral. And it's the horizontal surface of the planet Earth. The thing is, the entire body has a neutral position. So opposing muscles pull on either side of the neutral position to stabilize us in the neutral of all the functioning the entire body has, and that's how the body works. Okay, the body is determined by the shape and length of our bones that grow by themselves within this universal human design, being designed in the image of God. Every body who has one, or everyone who has a body, is who our information applies to under In the Image Clothing Company. Truly, even if you're different, you can only be different from something, and it's the universal human design, and so we still have to do what we can to get as close as we can to that in our own individual situations. Okay, so what am I saying? That muscles only pull, right? Muscles pull on either side of a function, pulling to close a hinge joint, with opposing muscles pulling to extend one. Muscles pull to rotate the pelvis up in the front and down in the rear. Posterior. Muscles pull to rotate the pelvis down in the front and up in the rear. Anterior. Like, look at my shirt tail here that I'm wearing at the bottom of the frame, right? It'll go up in the front and down in the rear, or up in the rear and down in the front, following my pelvis moving, okay? The neutral is the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, okay? The same as the bottom of the feet. From the feet lifting up, dorsiflexion, or pointing down, plantar flexion. The neutral is the term zero drop in any brand of shoe, just meaning flat on the shoe sole, okay? But the neutral for the hips, which the point with this video's title on the 16th of July 2026 under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, rotated shirt tail seams and the hips, is that the shirt tail seams are in the same location the hips are. Okay, and so the neutral for the hips being horizontal, we have to have our pant waistline at least horizontal, like level, front to rear. Right, look at the shirt tail that I'm wearing at the bottom of the frame of the camera here. Okay, there's a neutral to it. We can show the pant waistline to show the same neutral, but the point is, the pant waistline is one of the big things that'll determine the hips. The pants are literally sitting on top of our hips at the natural waist, above the hip bones, but below the lowest rib bones. Regardless of how you carry fat content on top of your human flesh that is bone, right? Bone, blood, flesh, human being. It only is what it is. It's a mechanical machine with measurable mathematical degrees of hinges, levers, and rotations. A mechanical machine placed onto this rock in space we call Earth. Gravity's always the same. These universal laws are always the same. You know, with the vertical pull to gravity, this neutral to the hips, you know, a big focus is the pants. We're a clothing company, In the Image Clothing Company. The 16th of July, 2026. Today's date, this video's title, shirt tail seams that are rotating. Specifically, though, it's titled more worded like this: rotated shirt tail seams and the hips. The thing is, you know, the pant waistline having to stay at least horizontal with the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, and the hips neutral from posterior or anterior rotation. There's a lot more motion in the hips, and we'll talk about some of that in this video, than just posterior or anterior rotation. But there's also a shirt tail. You know, not just the pant waistline determining the hips position, but that's why I'm saying to look at the shirt tail at the bottom of the frame here at the camera, is because the bottom of the frame of the camera is horizontal, right? Like the horizontal surface of the planet Earth. But as I rotate my hips, you can see the angle changing in the shirt tail. So if we have rotating seams in our clothing, okay, robots stitching our clothing in modern day, technology that didn't exist until it did, an invention of human beings. Yeah, what's happening is I'm documenting pieces of permanent truth because I'm the founder but leader for my entire lifetime of In the Image Clothing Company. My name is Evan Strong, and this applies to every body who has one and everyone who has a body. Okay, universal human design, it's always the exact same, unless you're different. But from the same universal design is what you're different, right? Let's leave it at that. So yeah, I mean, we address things if and where needed, but only if and where needed. You know, the thing is, the surface of the earth is always horizontal. The thing is, if you have the ability to have motion in your pelvis, there's always posterior or anterior, because the shape of the actual bone of the pelvis is supposed to stay vertical with Earth's vertical gravity pull. You know, at the legs coming up into the pelvis and the spine coming down into the pelvis being the hip structure of the human being. So these side seams coming down our tops, you know, they'll come down, but then there's just material that's only on one side of where it's stitched. Okay, because it's coming down straight, then when it gets to the bottom, it rotates, and then they fold it in just one side. So see how this stitch right here is rotating backward, like toward my back? It's coming down the side of the top, but then it's going backward. Okay, now if this was against my body here, if I was just wearing this green top that I'm showing for the visual in this video on the 16th of July 2026 under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, right? If this seam comes down and rotates backward like that, then as it sits on my hip, it's going to want to just fold like this with the shirt tail going higher in the rear, because it's just stitched back here, be on the back of this stitch backward, to where that's just where it's connected, and it's going to try to rotate, right? This one here has been modified within the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification, so it has motion in both directions. But before you cut it, right there where the seam comes down and meets the shirt tail, it's only going backward in this case. And so it'll want to fall like this, okay, with the rear of it coming up and the front of it going down, just because it's connected. It's stitched together back here, and so there's motion on the front part, but on the back part, it'll be just kind of stuck because it's literally stitched together, only on one side, front or rear, if it's rotating, okay? So what this does is take the whole pelvis and make it go anterior, okay? If the rotated seam comes down and goes back, right? And so we've got a lot of videos discussing just rotating seams and tops in general, and then In The Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification. But, you know, also rotating seams in pants, In The Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification in pant cuffs, you know, as well. But I haven't made a video up until today's date, the 16th of July 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, as the founder and leader for life, Evan Strong, about the shirt tail and the rotated seam down here and what it's directly doing to the hips. Because let's look at it like this. If the seam rotates backward, like we showed there with the visual up close with this green shirt, at the shirt tail, it'll take the whole shirt tail higher in the rear and lower in the front. But this is like at the exact location as our hips. Really, I mean, tops need to be waisted. We've got a hip hinge where we bend at the hips, and tops shouldn't go lower than that, right? Ideally, okay? But also we need to clear the thumbs with the shirt tail so that this thumb can just rest against their own side and not have a gap there from the shirt tail. It'll change how the shoulder works, right? The shoulders rotate up and internal rotation, or down and external rotation. And if there's a gap, they'll fall down into external rotation. Mind the Gap, an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, one of our 4. This is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're on episode 210 of In The Image Clothing Company podcast as of today's date, the 16th of July 2026. But yeah, you know, we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. I talk about minding the gap between us and God that can just kind of sneak in there, but also minding the gap between things like our own side and our own arm that just change how the body works. Okay? There you go. So But at the shirt tail, it's also just right at the hips is the point. You know, the thumb needs to clear the shirt tail, and the shirt tail ideally needs to be waisted so that we can bend at the hips, okay? But also, there can be a rotated seam right at the side of the body at the hips, okay? Neither of these two shirts are quite ideal design-wise, but I use shirts that are not quite ideal as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company and leader for life, just to show what modifications can do and why they're needed, and also show how we get into chronic patterning as human beings through the literal word of clothing our bodies with anything. If you're a man or a woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age, from any part of the earth or any time period to ever be, you're just a human being. And there's only one way the human body could ever possibly work for everyone, or everybody who has one, because everyone has a body. Rotated shirt tail seams and the hips. The thing is, our hips can have one side of them go anterior and the other side of them go posterior. You really can. Because what happens is there's rotations on either side of our bodies. Okay. We have 2 feet opposing the center line of the human being, gripping arches inward to keep us vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull. But, you know, traveling up from the feet to the hips, we've got internal rotation or external rotation. Just like locking the hand out from the shoulder by straightening the elbow between the two, the entire arm just does the same thing. Anywhere the hand goes, the shoulder goes, rotations, and just motion. Same thing with the foot to the hip. If we lock the knee out between the foot and hip, just straighten the knees, the entire leg has this internal or external rotation. But this is coming from the hips down to the feet as much as it's coming from the feet up to the hips. And the body's a kinetic chain. It's all connected, okay? Bones connect to bones, connecting to bones through the whole body. It's all just directly connected at the bones through ligaments with a thin layer of cushioning called cartilage between the bones so they don't wear each other out. But the bones are extremely specifically shaped. They're an extremely specific length. There's 206 bones in the body that all do the thing they do, and they can't do anything else. Today's the 16th of July, 2026. This is In the Image Clothing Company's main side. One of our videos, this one's titled Rotating Shirt Tail Seams and the Hips. Okay, rotated shirt tail seams and the hips. Yeah, so the hips, what we can have is external rotation down one leg, like the foot pointing out away from the body. The neutral is the pinky toe straight forward with those different length 5 toes that we roll off the ends of evenly to share the weight within this universal human design. Different length 4 fingers meshing evenly around a different length opposable thumb that has an entirely different function than the fingers. But there's external rotation in the whole leg, rotating the whole leg out, or there's internal rotation in the whole leg, rotating the whole leg in. Just like the arm, right? The neutral for the arm is straight out the outside of the forearm, down and out the pinky finger, or straight forward at the thumb. And then there's rotations from there, motion from there. Okay, but that's the neutral. Okay, there's a video under In the Image Clothing Company's main site currently titled The Pinky Fingers and the Pinky Toes. I think it's actually the other way around, the pinky toes and the pinky fingers, but they're the neutral, okay? For the body. The neutral for the hand is the pinky finger, the neutral for the foot is the pinky toe, the neutral for the wrist is the pinky finger, the neutral for the ankle is the pinky toe, the neutral for the rotations, internal versus external in the entire arm, well, is essentially the pinky finger straight out the arm, but it's also the pinky toe straight forward out the foot and the whole leg. What can happen is you can have rotating seams. This video is titled the 16th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, Rotated Shirt Tail Seams and the Hips. You can have rotating seams where one side's pinned backward, and the other side is pinned forward. So what this will do is, like I showed, if the seam comes down the side and it rotates backward, it takes the pelvis anterior. Well, if it comes down the side, a side seam of a top, and rotates forward when it gets to the shirt tail at where the hips are, it'll just take the pelvis posterior. Rotated seam backward at the shirt tail takes the pelvis anterior, or rotated seam forward at the shirt tail takes the pelvis posterior. It's just material being pinned down to material with a stitch. Okay, Lilo? Shout out to Disney. I mean it. I love Lilo and Stitch, personally. I really do. I really mean it. I'm saying that because it's real. It's authentic. I do. I really do. I do. You know what else I love is Jesus Christ. The ability to document this stuff. This is permanent truth. Here's the thing. In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the 16th of July, 2026, today's date, if one side's rotating backward, okay, with this video's title, rotating shirt tail seams and the hips, but then the other side's rotating forward at the shirt tail with the side seam coming down, then one side of the body's pelvis or hip structure will be rotating anterior, higher in the rear and lower in the front, with the shirt tail seam going backward. But the other side of the body will rotate posterior, with the shirt tail seam coming down and rotating forward. And you know what? Oh, never mind. This white one's also going backward on both sides, like this green shirt at the shirt tail seams, you know, coming down from the side seams to the shirt tail with these rotated seams. And so in the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification, it needs to be done regardless, just because we need motion at the hips. And yeah, we also need, you know, just motion in our clothing, gravity having the same effect on our clothing that it has on our bodies, clothing just being the literal wording of anything physically placed on our bodies. It's got to work for our bodies the only way the body grows by itself. This design in the image of God that just does what it does, determined by the shape and length of the bones within the universal human design. But also, you know, if we've got one side of the body's pelvis, you know, like the left half of the pelvis going anterior and the right half of the pelvis going posterior, and this travels down the legs to having external rotation on one side and internal rotation on the other side, or external rotation on this side and internal rotation on this side. The body's just all connected, you know, like we said in this video already, it's a kinetic chain, but it's also just meshing with Earth's vertical gravity pull that's just meshing with the center line of our bodies. We've got even opposing musculature from the center line of the body, okay? From left to right, there's just two sides to the body. Up an internal rotation, down an external rotation. If you've got external rotation on one side of the body, you have to have internal rotation on the other side, and vice versa, because there's just two sides to the body, right? It's just what it is. It's rotating around the center, like, or pivoting around a center point, which is the spine above the hips, you know, the center of the body. The only vertical support above the hips is the spine when it comes to bone, okay? Okay, there you go. The point is, yeah, the hips, they're not only going to get altered just with anterior or posterior rotation, but one side can be anterior and one side can be posterior, or one side can be posterior and the other side can be anterior, because of rotating seams in our clothing stitched by robots in modern 2026. So check us out. In the Image Clothing Company, we discuss where clothing sits on the body very specifically and clearly, you know. No opinion, staying centered, fitting correct, being made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials. we'll have clothing available, you know, but we also just give so many free modifications in clothing, ways to modify life so we don't damage our bodies living in this modern man-made world placed onto God's natural earth. In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, In the Image Clothing Company Music. Check out the other 3 sides that's not this one, which is the main side of In the Image Clothing Company if you'd like to. Okay, we're based in Utah, the state, in the United States of America, specifically in St. George, Utah. Thank you. Chronic patterning gets built up in the body. That's what I'm saying. You know, oversized clothing, imbalances like rotating seams, pocket zippers, buttons, collar seams, clothing just not fitting properly or imbalanced in any way, ropes like shoelaces or drawstrings, but anything tied on or around the body with one side over the other twists the entire body. Like this, how we've got one seam going backward and one seam going forward, hypothetically, in side seams coming down to the shirt tails. They twist the entire body. Chronic patterning. So that's really what we do here under In the Image Clothing Company, is get out of chronic patterning that's been built up in the body, because there truly is always only one way the human being's bones connect. They just grow by themselves. There's only one way the human body could ever work. Universal laws and physics that are outside of all of our opinions on how to get our bodies to do anything that they don't already just do, which can't happen, right? But why isn't the body working then? Because it's in a pattern of trying to work around, well, imbalances of any kind, but, you know, it's the only thing physically placed on us, the literal word of clothing. Well, In the Image Clothing Company, you know, that's why our slogan is allowing the body to work. It's more about the human being's functioning than it could ever possibly be about clothing. I mean, if we never had any clothing to wear, we'd never have to even talk about clothing, but we could still be as much In the Image Clothing Company as we still are, because the focus is the functionality of the human being. You know, but clothing is very important. It keeps us healthy and safe, modest. There's a lot of reasons we wear clothing, you know, a lot of needs, and then you can choose to focus on fashion on top of the needs of clothing for like health benefits and reasons, you know, different reasons we wear clothing, but we all wear clothing, you know, so thank you. We're all on the same planet Earth too. We're all human beings. We're all designed by the same God. You don't have to be religious, but truth is truth, and I don't get to decide or change it or anything, and neither do you, and neither does this guy over here, or that girl, or well, anyone.